Welcome everybody to the Dope and Tape Show. This is episode 69, and we had to make this episode special. So we have Shawn from NFPA. He's here. We're going to hang out here about some code. We have plenty of questions about 241 and some other things, and then we want to hear his story, how he got to pretty much like what we view as like the pinnacle of this industry, like being employed by NFPA and being involved in all the studies that they're doing and all the projects. It's incredible. Just so you know, it's free to come on the show. You just gotta let me know. Say, hey, I want to come on and I want to tell my story. Or I got a friend that's pretty awesome. He has a great story. Send him or her our way. And if you want to sponsor it, we have 2 slots available on the show, and you just get with us and we can set up some sponsoring. And welcome, Shawn, man.
Yeah,
Welcome
thanks
to the
for
Dope and
having
Tape
me.
Show.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us.
So pretty much in this industry, someone brings you in. Was your story kind of the same? Like,
Yeah, I would say
typically,
so.
yeah, because typically you do not get like, I'm just gonna apply to be in fire protection. Like someone is
Yeah,
always like, you should try this. You should come with me. That's
most people I
typically
know
how it
have
goes.
some connection. So I am a fire protection engineer, so it was a little bit of a process to get to where I am. But where I started, my dad was a volunteer firefighter when I was young, so I've kind of always been around firefighting. Kind of grew up in the firehouse a bit. When I became 16, I joined the firehouse as a volunteer, did that for a while. Always been kind of into the math and science, and people were saying that I should get into engineering. And then kind of found out about fire protection engineering, got really into that. So I ended up started off at University of New Haven in Connecticut for fire protection engineering, but eventually transferred to Worcester Polytech in
Okay.
Massachusetts, where I got my bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering, and then started working at Tyco Fire Protection Products prior to them getting bought out by JCI
Right.
after I graduated. And while I was at Tyco, I continued for my master's at Worcester Polytech for fire protection engineering, and then worked at Tyco Fire Protection for a while, did research and development for the mechanical side, so a lot of the couplings and valves and things like that. And then I worked in the special hazards group, so I did some water mist projects for nozzle development, as well as some water supply for those special hazards. So that was pretty fun. And then went into be a fire protection consultant for a fire protection engineering firm outside of Massachusetts for a while. And then I knew some people at NFPA. They said that there was an opening for fire protection in their tech services group. So that's kind of got my job there. And that's where I've been for the past 6 years or so, been working for NFPA, and it's
Wow.
awesome.
That's
6
incredible.
years is a long time. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a long time. And we were talking off air, and you were like, "Man, I freaking love it here." I mean, that's awesome to hear too. And
It's
and going to the show, we went to Las Vegas, and like everybody from NFPA was so happy to be there.
yeah.
Like you could feel the passion in everybody.
That's also
Great
like
host.
CNE is we refer to it as like our Super Bowl. Like it's what a lot of us work towards every year. Like one of my big responsibilities is putting together all the educational conference. So all the ed sessions, that's all I run that process of going through and vetting all the presenters and stuff. So like everybody's kind of got a hand in all the different parts, and seeing it all come together is awesome. And
Uh,
the biggest thing is
Yeah.
seeing all the stakeholders, like seeing all of our members and everybody come together. It's awesome.
it's a lot of work.
That's a good like point of reference. So like that, I would say that was kind of like the Super Bowl for me and Bobby. Like we were
Definitely
that
was.
excited to go.
It's a great way to
Yeah.
describe it.
Like man, like months before, like it wasn't even a month before. We knew
We
we
had like
had
2 weeks to
2 weeks.
prepare. It didn't
yeah,
feel
yeah,
it didn't
2 weeks.
feel real, and all of a
And
sudden we were there.
no,
We were working, but we were trying to like
freaking out.
experience it.
Oh yeah, yeah, freaking out the whole time, and that it was like we were at the Super Bowl. It
You
was
Yeah.
you
awesome.
guys hosted a great event.
Did you guys
It
make
was
it
it
to
was
general
great.
session on Monday?
Um,
No, we came a day late.
no,
Oh,
yeah,
We were
okay.
a day late.
You got to come to general session. That's always fun. Like it's like the grand opening, and it's a like a big energetic.
No, next year we're gonna be there for the whole thing.
Yeah.
We're not gonna
Yeah.
miss a
We just
second.
were. It was 2 weeks before, so we had to figure
Yeah.
out with work
I was
and
I was actually on
make it
vacation in the
happen.
Cape with my family while we got invited, and I'll never forget that. Like, did that just really happen?
Like that
Shout out to
just really
Arco.
happened. That was our code sent us there. They took care of everything, and it was, I mean, it was humbling and blessed. It was a blessing. I mean, I don't know if I can put words to it.
The
We
Super
really
Bowl.
appreciate
It
that
was the Super
opportunity.
Bowl.
Yeah, it was the Super
It was
Bowl.
fucking
It's
great.
like your friends inviting you to the Super Bowl, and you're like a huge fan of the team that's
Yeah.
playing. That's how we felt. It
I
was
see you
Yeah.
got
cool.
a Starlink behind you.
Yeah.
That's
It,
that's like a Massachusetts like that started here, no? The
what, the company?
like just making the signal go directly to the fire department and knowing what's going on. Isn't
I
that?
don't know if it started in Mass.
I think all like almost all of our buildings are like that now.
So
Yeah. So
Atlanta is like that too.
Massachusetts is one of like in New England, you see a lot of the public emergency alarm reporting systems, which is like most people don't understand that. Like I could walk outside and go pull a pull station on my telephone pole like down the road. That's a big New England thing. Like older cities and stuff have that reporting system. And so Massachusetts, like if you have a fire alarm panel, goes to a master box, which essentially it's pulling that pull station. So
Well,
Good
I
old
didn't know that.
master
And
box.
5G, is kind of the new thing. And um, so Florida requires you to have Starlink has a metal box. I think that's the plastic box. It's the standard
that's the metal
5G.
one back there.
Is it a metal? Okay, I can't
Yeah.
really tell. But so the metal ones will have a battery backup. So all Florida is required to have a battery backup.
Hmm.
Atlanta is trying to get that way, but they're not there yet. So I don't know if it's up there like that with Mass too. And I bring that up for the salespeople that are watching, and you got to know because there's a pretty good difference in pricing.
Yeah,
Pay
I
attention.
think 72 is also so the fire alarm code requires that, pretty sure requires that battery backup as well. That's a big thing too for IP, like if someone's using an like internet as well, to have that battery
Mm-hmm.
backup for all the IP stuff that is used to
Right.
get that signal out, which is
What's up?
something that people don't do.
What's up to everybody in the chat? Thanks for joining us. Don't forget to
What's
hit the
up,
like button.
guys?
Thanks for being here. We got Shawn from NFPA. Exciting for anyone who's just
This
joining.
is super
If
exciting.
you got any
So
questions, send them off. We're gonna get into it.
lately, Bobby's been having all kind of trouble with 241 up in Boston. I don't have to deal with it down here in Atlanta, thank goodness. But it is a drastic variable to navigate. I mean,
We're
it's
pushing the
huge.
cause. I want you to be dealing with it. I want everyone to be dealing with it. Like
So do
we,
I mean from NFPA, from like a fire protection standpoint, I think everybody should be considering 241, even from an owner's perspective, from an insurance perspective. Like protecting the asset as you're building it is extremely important, especially protecting the people building it.
I
Something that's
agree, but
huge.
I mean, comes down when it comes down to doing something like he's on the install side, and then I am building the contract to do it, to the engineering, and then the sales contract. And if I am going to sell something where I don't have to deal with 241 versus something
Yeah.
versus
it's
like I
cheaper.
adapt it because I think it's the right thing, my that proposal will be way up, way higher. And the
Yeah.
guys are gonna be like, I'm not paying for that. I'll go with this guy. I don't care.
So just
And
last,
that's
You
kind of how it is. Unless it's mandated, no one's gonna do it.
what we're
yeah, do
dealing
I
with is sorry, go ahead.
no go ahead, Bobby.
Well, so what we're dealing, and I don't know if we've been doing it wrong or what have you, but what we typically would do is I'll be the first one in a space, and I'm pulling the first tile and I'm spinning the pendant upright, to the deck, and the laborers follow right behind me are the demo guys, and they rip the ceiling down, which requires us to take out the sprinklers and the smokes, because anytime you do a demo permit, they want to have the smokes taken out.
Mm-hmm.
And then if I'm spinning pendants to uprights, I need to have the sprinkler down. And then in 241, it says we can't do that both at the same time. So then now we're thinking, so we have to hire a fire watch during that day or two process. It's kind of what we
Yeah,
came from that plan.
a big part of 241 is writing a plan. So like all buildings are different, and one of the big things is controlling all of the impairments, especially on like you're doing a lot more of like renovation work. So like you're in is the building partially occupied and you're like renovating portions,
Yeah.
so it gets even more complicated at that
That's
point where you want to make
largely
sure you're not
occupied.
stacking impairments and you're properly protecting them. That's where it gets a bit confusing, but that's where the job of the fire prevention program manager
That
should be
usually, so they're
controlling
usually
them.
like they're usually just electing the super. Like whoever's the super
That's
for
fine,
that
yeah.
space, he's now the FPP FPPM,
FPPM, yeah,
and
fire prevention program
and it
manager.
comes with a packet, you know. And like we're dealing with people like Code Red who are already in there, and
Mhm.
they're helping us along and verifying that we're doing it right. I think that they want to see if we're going to make a mistake, and then they'll tell us before telling us before type deals what it is, like seeing if we know. But like I said, we're kind of like I don't see anybody else doing it, so we're like learning it and reading it and just trying to do it right. And then
Mhm.
like at the last minute, we're like, shit, we need a fire watch.
Yeah. And I would assume what, like, Code Red's the one writing the plan,
Yep,
right? And they're making sure it's being followed.
yep,
Yeah. Massachusetts is, or Boston's one of the big cities we're seeing making that first move of the requirement of having that, documenting who the fire prevention program manager is and requiring that the fire prevention program manager takes it's we developed a training that trains someone on like how to follow a fire prevention program, and Boston requires whoever the manager is to have that training so they
yeah.
at least
Take a
understand what they're
class.
doing. What they were finding was that someone would say, "Oh, this super is going to be the FPPM," and sometimes they didn't even know that they were the ones assigned, and sometimes they weren't even on site. So the big thing is having them on site and having that all documented.
Right. I think as we progress, whoever's fallen into this place now as being assigned as the FPPM in a year or two, they're going to be they're going to be a great asset somewhere that needs help doing this.
Yeah,
'Cause we're
yeah,
seeing
for
it a little
sure.
bit in New York. I get some guys in New York that will tell me that they're doing the same thing. And NFPA 241, man, we got to all do it. We're going to see it
Yeah, I
in
mean, I think
Atlanta soon.
the big thing we were
Oof.
talking about before this was that 241 is referenced in a lot of building codes and fire codes, and it's just not enforced. So
That's
the
correct.
big thing we're seeing is not from like a regulatory standpoint that it needs to be put in place. It's that it needs to be enforced, and a lot more people need to be aware that it's there.
Maybe we should start putting. Wayne says the crane fire. As soon as I seen that crane on fire in New York, I was thinking we should have in the 241 plan. We should be putting a sprinkler up there.
There's been a lot of crane accidents lately.
How could we get a valve up there? I'll
New
run a
York
valve up
and
up
in
that crane
Atlanta.
tower.
They usually have a special suppression system on those anyways. So not
I
sure.
think he just had an extinguisher up there, but
Yeah.
run a nice little 4-inch standpipe up there with a valve every level if they want.
Yeah.
Have to get that put
Oof,
on the
that would be a lot.
241. Um, yeah. So I mean, if there's anything that we could ever do to help push the 241, I just talk about it as much as I can. I feel like
Yeah.
I'm the only one that has to deal with it. I want others to have to deal with it too, and I want to see how they're dealing with it. Yeah, a lot of the guys in the chat saying that NFPA 241, never heard of her.
Never heard of her. Now that is something. Maybe you can answer
Florencio.
this for us. So let's say that 241 needs to be adopted in other states. What is the process typically? Because like Atlanta does not enforce that at all. I like when I do my building plans or anything like that, I don't have to consider that. So what does that even look like? It would have to have some kind of push.
Yeah, and that I think there was some big pushes in Boston from a couple significant fires that led to the death of some firefighters, which pushed the requirements for hot work permits, pushed and then started pushing the requirements for 241. But it was all already referenced in the building codes. It was just I think the big thing I'm thinking of is like Cambridge. They were the ones were like, it's in there. We're going to start requiring these 241 plans, and that's where that big push was. And you saw like engineering groups like Code Red, kind of lead that cause and write these plans. I was our engineering, the group that I work for, we did a lot of 241 plans as well. And it was from them saying, we're just going to start enforcing it. I mean, there's a lot of things referenced in building codes and fire codes that might not necessarily get enforced to the degree that they're actually being referenced. So that's the thing that it's just all about education.
So pretty much what you're saying is something has to happen.
Or you're
I mean, I
one.
think we're seeing a lot of construction site fires, so there's becoming a lot more awareness of it, at least on my end, that's what we're seeing.
You're like one fire chief away from the whole city having to enforce 241. If you get like
Yeah.
the right fire chief, like the top dog at the Atlanta Fire Department, and he just says we're gonna now enforce this, bam, that's it. No permit's gonna get signed until everybody's enforcing it.
But it also
Boston
comes
came,
down to that comes down to education, like you said. I
yeah.
mean, you would have to have someone come from a jurisdiction that has it, like somewhere in Boston, for
I don't
example.
know.
Like
Yeah,
if
but
we
what
got a
you
Boston
gotta learn
chief
it like
come
we're
down to
learning it.
Atlanta.
You gotta learn it like we're learning it.
I
Just
think the Boston
the
came
guinea
from the
pigs.
mayor too. She like drilled that down onto BFD to push harder on 241 after there was a couple construction site fires. So that's again,
BFD's
it's like a legislative
heavily
thing too.
involved too.
Oh,
I
they
mean, they're
are.
heavily involved with fill ups and drain downs, and Atlanta's, for just a reference, because I know, is not. Like when I do any kind of um construction work, like drain down, fill up, fire department's not. They're nowhere around.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's another requirement I'm seeing now too, Sean, is they want a fire watch if you drain the zone, any zone. You drain any zone, they want a fire watch. Newton Wellesley, um, there's a couple towns around Boston that's part of me shutting it down. Is there's got to be a fireman on site before I can spin the valve.
I mean, that's all in there in NFPA 25. I mean, you're impairing the system, so you've got to have some sort of plan in place, and Firewatch is one of those, or temporary fire protection. So that's the 25 requirement, as well as depending on why you're doing that drain down is a 241 requirement as well.
Right.
So again, it's all in there. It's like, to
It's
what
in there.
degree
It's
is it
just we
being
we gotta we
enforced?
gotta enforce it all. Steve says it's all
So
about money.
is it hey Bobby, on a, let's say, a partially occupied or even a fully occupied space, and you're doing an ad relocate. At what point in the drain down and the fill up is BFD notified and involved?
If I'm in a town where it needs a fire watch,
Well, let's just say no. Let's say you got to go into the hospital. You got to relocate 6 heads or 4 heads. At what point do you have to get them fully involved, or is it
uh,
every time?
yeah, I mean just for that permit, they'd have to be involved, and there's gonna be a 241 plan in place for them to accept our permit. And there's gonna be a building permit that's been accepted already for them to even look at it.
Okay. So typically, like here in Atlanta, some jurisdictions, like I do not have to pull a permit for, let's say, 8 or less heads.
Oh yeah,
Um,
we have stipulations like that as well.
So let's say you're not pulling a permit that's 6 heads that you're relocating. Do you get them involved or you knock it out?
But yeah, we probably just knock it out. But it
Yeah.
depends on how
Okay.
it's
So
set
if
up.
it's a permitted job,
The
that's what you're saying.
the ad relocate is still like, is the ceiling going to be down if I'm ad relocating? So I'm showing up to a fully gridded out, because I'd have to now just be, we follow 241, so I would be trying to get them with the extra to put uprights in if the
Mm.
ceiling was down for a day. There's been instances where I go in Friday after work and I spin the heads upright position so they could do work Saturday. I come in Sunday night, spin them exactly right back down so they put the grid back in.
Wow.
Just for like that one night of protection, those couple hours.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
It's
again,
crazy.
it's not necessarily a 241 requirement that you spin the heads, right? It's a 241 requirement that you write a plan, and the plan might be, we're just always going to spin heads up every time we're taking the ceiling down. The plan could be that we put a fire watch out anytime we do that, right? That's all up to the person writing that fire prevention program. And that's where a lot of those details come in place. So like
I got you. Oh, that makes
241's not
sense.
super, it's not like you're going to look in 241, it's going to say, if you take the ceiling out, you've got to do X, Y, and Z. It's a process on who's like, how do we determine if this person's qualified to write this plan? And then what does the plan need to include? And then based on the building type, there's additional requirements. There's requirements for site security. If you're a wooden building, there's a whole chapter on large wood structures. Obviously, we see a lot of construction fires, but how do we protect large wooden structures? Because while we're building it, we don't have gypsum up, we don't have that passive fire protection, so we're relying more on that active. That's where you're seeing a lot of those big, like the apartment complexes that burn up because they're all wood construction without any protection.
A little bit of wind.
Yep.
So I did hear a little birdie told me that in the new updated 241 that on a big new construction job that's going up, they're gonna have to have temp coverage throughout the floor potentially as the building moves up?
I'm off the top of my head. It says like you've got to have protection as as reasonable as quickly as possible or something like that. It doesn't give you a necessary time exactly when that has to happen, but it's saying that you need to establish protection as quickly as possible, and that is as the building gets built. I know like the standpipes required to go up with the building, and it's kind of along the same lines for that sprinkler protection as we've got that first floor done, like we've got to have temporary protection and so forth. Yeah.
That I think that's gonna create a little bit of extra work for us, 'cause and it's gonna create us being able to go first, which is what we always want to do on a big job. Always want sprinklers to go first.
Yeah.
First in's best dressed.
And there is requirements in there about temporary fire pumps and putting temporary fire pumps in place and all that. So there's a lot more a little bit more prescriptive requirements around, the fire protection features and things like that.
I like that.
241 for the 2022 edition was significantly reorganized, so it does look a little bit different than it did in the 2018 edition.
That's good to know. I think that's gonna stir up a little bit of work. All right, do we have any more questions on 241? So we got other NFPAs we want to talk about. Let's see what the comments say. Why the relaxation in head testing? Dry pendants scare the crap out of me in reliability. Is it a building owner push, or is it felt the dry sprinklers are reliable enough to relax the standard?
Are you talking about 25's relaxation? I think it's up to 15 years on the dry pendants, I
Yeah,
think.
what are we talking? It went from 10 to 15, right?
I think so. Yeah, and that is all based on historical data from testing. So it was a lot shorter when, they first came out, and now we've got a little more data on as these come in for testing how well they're doing. A lot of the stuff in 25 is being based on empirical data from doing those tests. So they're seeing that they are reliable,
Oh, okay. That's
a new
good to
product
know.
comes out, you can't just all of a sudden assume it's gonna last for a long time. So we want to make sure, that they are reliable.
So we made sure they're reliable, and we're extending their life expectancy.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, so what do you think, Bri? Lithium? You want to talk
That's
lithium a
good.
little bit, or 420?
Yeah, so 420 is a new thing. I mean, like completely new thing,
I
right?
love that you guys kept. I love that you guys made it 420. That's
Yeah,
epic.
that's awesome.
It is. So yeah,
I don't-
420 is a new standard. Let me pull it up real quick because it came out what last year, the year before.
All these grow facilities all across the country, and they're pumping in all their equipment, and they're not updating. They didn't do anything fire protection wise. They just put all this equipment in there that uses all this power and has all this heat, and then
Tons of power.
right, ton,
So the big thing with grow facilities that I hear a lot, and um, I know some people who have worked with them from the fire protection side, and like the big thing with them is the extraction. Like I didn't like in the past, and I think extraction is a little bit different now, which is like actually pulling the THC from the plants. They were using like butane and propane and a lot of like flammable liquids. That's where a lot of the problems were coming from.
Explosive.
Now the extraction's getting a little bit safer. I think they're using some different stuff. But yeah, and then the big thing is power.
lots of power.
Which is like different than you would see in like a typical indoor grow facility.
Are they bringing in converters for anything higher than like 120 or as far as voltage or
What do you mean to increase the voltage?
right? Are they increasing it to maintain that power or is it all like
Yeah, I
standard
think they're
120 stuff?
No, I think they're using a lot more like high voltage for the lighting and
Oh
stuff.
wow.
Those places use so much power, bro.
They do.
So
I
much power.
was where I was somewhere. I think I was driving through New Hampshire, and I saw this giant building with this gigantic generator, like almost the size of the building. Like, what is this generator for? I'm like, this building's got to be pretty significant, right? And I drive by, it's a grow house. I'm like, of course they've got a generator.
Oh, that
Dude,
makes
they're
sense.
everywhere in Mass now too. It's crazy.
It was the biggest
protect the
generator I've ever
bud.
seen.
So in Mass is it legal?
Yeah.
Oh,
decriminalized.
really?
It's you can go to the
Oh,
dispensary. People have medical cards.
do your thing, huh?
That's it.
Wow.
You can go like over the counter. But when you drive by one, it smells good. Stinks up the whole
Yeah,
neighbor. Wherever they put one, it stinks up the whole neighborhood.
that
But
Yeah.
I know
powerful.
like a
Wow.
lot. So some on some of these hydro builds, they'll have like a shelving system where all their buckets of water and the plants sit up, and they're if it's over 18 inches, we got to put protection under it.
Hmm.
So, and a lot of these guys didn't know that when they were building these facilities, so they got these 2 foot spaces to have all their hoses and wires and whatnot, and then they got the buckets with the hydro on them, and then so they have a void. So now they're having to put like this rack system in under all their hydro plants. It's a big cost that some of these guys weren't anticipating.
Wow. So I also wanted to talk to you about, so I just did see how many sprinkler heads was it? I want to say it was 12. I was ad relocating 12 heads in a shopping center, a restaurant. It was one of my jobs, and it required me to recount the system, and it was going to be a huge thing. And they were bidding out the job, so I knew if I had to recalc it, then I had to get an engineer involved, and then it would just be expensive. And so what I did instead was use the Victaulic VS2 flex heads because they're calced out to 5.6 K factor actually. And that way I didn't even have to do that. We just installed and ran with it, and I got it because it was significantly less money to just go with the heads instead of paying an engineer 8 hours.
Hmm.
And I wanted have you heard of this head? Or have you heard of that?
I haven't heard of that exact head, but I'm curious. What is it? The Victaulic?
It's a Victaulic VS2.
I'm just curious what they. So what they probably did is with all of their K factor testing is they did it. Yeah, they did the testing with the hose, with the flex hose. So it's just a direct
After
replacement.
doing that, and I had to, I didn't have to calc the system, and it was so easy. I think I'm gonna do that a lot more.
So what they do special with the hose that they what are you seeing that they did special with the hose?
I think if it's just attached to the head, so that it just creates the head at a 5.6 K factor.
So you can't take the head
Yes,
off?
it's all one. It looks
It's
like it's
all
all
one
one
piece.
piece.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So the big thing too with K factor is it's not just like when I was doing sprinkler design, right? It's not just the size of the hole, right? There's so much that goes into the actual K factor. It's the shape and everything, and the fitting that it gets attached to. All that gets included in the K factor. So it looks like they just added the hose in when they did all their testing. So it's just all counts in there.
Well, that's pretty
And
cool.
so if your
Innovation.
requirements is lower than a 5.6, which by the way, 5.6 is pretty high. You're good to go, right? Wouldn't you say? Let's say you're
It's pretty
rated
standard
to,
K
yeah,
factor.
Yeah, 5.6 is
5.6.
standard,
Yeah, that's pretty
pretty
standard.
standard.
But I loved it, and I think I wanted to mention it because I think a lot of people are just don't know about it, and I think it's great. I think
Flex
it's
is
a
the
great
way.
innovation.
I'm kind of just starting to get to use a little
You
bit of
use it
flex.
all the time, right?
No, just recently, because the hospitals in Boston do not allow flex. None of them. You're not allowed to use flex. You're not allowed to use Schedule 10. You're not allowed to use couplings under 2 inch. It's got to all be threaded pipe. There's a bunch of stipulations that I'm following in the hospital. So when I go off the beaten path and I'm not in Boston and there's not as many rules and they want me to be
Right.
faster, they get flex heads. So all right, that was a little curveball. Let's go back to 420. I want to talk about 420 and those.
So I am looking at it right now. So 420 is still technically proposed standard. They are working through their pre first draft meetings, but I was trying to find in NFPA 1, which is the fire code, that's where a lot of the grow house stuff, there is a chapter. I'm trying to find it.
Because like
I'm
they
pretty sure.
because so even with that immense power they got in there, I mean if you just have if it's an electrical fire that and we're just gonna put water on it, that even seems a little bit silly. If they
They have
got
the
a
same problems in electrical rooms and stuff.
yeah,
Still.
you got a huge warehouse of just like 480 with a bunch of lights and then sprinkle some water on it.
I wonder if there's a it would be good to kill the power in case of like if the alarm goes off. Let's say it has a two indication, like a pre-action, like a you got, let's say you got a smoke and then you got a head, like a loss of air, and then it kills power and sends water.
Like a shunt trip.
Right. I think that'll be kind of the way to go because you don't want to keep feeding electricity into the room in case of an electrical fire. Is that in there that it's
So I'm
required or?
looking. There's there there's a lot about so chapter 38 of NFPA 1. I'm looking at the 2021 edition. There's a lot about ventilation, and I'm remembering now, like, so they do pump a lot of CO2 into the space.
Okay.
So you do have to cut power to the CO2 ventilation upon activation if you have one of those systems.
Oh, they
So
pump
there is a
CO2. That
shunt
makes
trip.
sense. It's like just a
Okay.
big. Yeah, that's a special new thing that's just new. I mean, they started allowing it, and they literally just went up. It's like everywhere as soon
Yeah,
as
there's some
that, as soon
stuff
as it went legal.
about fumigation, about notifying the fire department when fumigation's being used, pesticides application,
Damn, so that thing. So
extraction.
NFPA 420 is thick. They got all kinds of stuff in
So
there.
with 420, with NFPA 1420, does it require or does it have instructions or requirements on how to do the inspection? Or is it strictly a install and design like NFPA 13?
So I have to look. So again, NFPA 420 is still proposed right now. They're still working through the first through the pre-first draft meeting, which means they're working on a draft for the public to even comment on.
Oh, so it's not even a
Okay.
standard yet.
It's not necessarily a standard yet.
I gotcha.
I had thought that it was a little bit further along, but no, it looks like their last meeting was July 10th and 11th of this year. So,
All right, we
and
got a
that's still
couple.
pre-first
We got a
draft,
couple
yeah.
questions in the chat. So Eric says in Indiana they test their dry heads every 10 years, and so does Eric. Eric and Kenneth. Indiana 10 years, and in New York 10 years. I think everywhere was 10 years, and now you're allowed to go 15. I don't think it goes by state.
It depends on which edition of 25 they're looking at.
Oh, right. I guess it is depending on which edition of 25 you're on. So Tommy
Yeah.
says, my next question is why is paint or corrosion on a sprinkler now left for interpretation? They've changed the wording to basically if it's detrimental to operation.
Yeah, as soon as that came out, it scared pretty much everybody out here as in the field.
That was in the most recent edition, right? That was 2022.
That's correct. Yeah, that was a change.
I don't know the exact, I can't really speak to exactly what the committee talked about, but I know that there's always been that discussion about like how much paint is too much paint, like is a tiny, tiny little speck too much. So I think they're, leaving a little bit in there for interpretation. If you have a tiny speck of corrosion on there, it might be acceptable, but someone's going to have to evaluate it.
So
As
how
opposed
I
to
look at it,
before,
Hey,
when
what's
it
yeah,
was
that?
like you could have had the tiniest speck of paint on that head. Now it's got to go.
yeah.
Leaving a little bit of room up for interpretation.
Right, you got one
As
little
an
speck on the
yeah,
arm.
as an inspector, like I was less concerned about corrosion than I was with paint. I mean, if it was like terrible, of course I would write it up. But if it was just like a little green, I would let it ride. Paint wise, if it was on the arm or a little bit on the reflector, I would let it go. But anywhere near the bulb or anywhere near the seat, it it's
No
automatic
go.
deficiency for sure. Yeah. And then a lot of times, so guys, when you're doing the inspections, put your light on the seat. So when you go and put your flashlight on it, aim it at the seat, and that's where your eyes need to go first. So on a white head, you'll see the reflection. It'll be shiny. If it was painted before and someone got a solvent and got the solvent off, it's not going to be as shiny. And then there's always that white line on the edge of the seat, and you'll see that white line if they even if they got it like all of it good with a rag and a solvent. So just look at that seat, see if there's anything white. Just, it's typically white if it's been painted, and you can quickly tell if it's been cleaned and it's actually a deficiency
Have
head.
you ever tried to open a window that's been painted?
Yeah, exactly. So that's
Yeah.
one. So that's one of my phrases. When
Tommy, Tommy told me to hit
when
him
an
with it.
engineer's like, yeah, when an engineer's like, oh, it's just a little paint. I was like, well, have you ever tried to open a window that's been painted? He's like, well, that's a good point.
That's a good one. So we got a question from California. I heard that seismic bracing will have its own code. Is this true, and when will we see it? I'd be seismic bracing everything in Massachusetts. So what you guys
So
don't?
it's not just seismic bracing, it's all hanging and bracing is going to be moving to its own standard.
Oh,
Oh,
that's
So
sick.
that's because 13, 14, I think 20, 20 and 22 might have a little bit in there. And then you've got like water mist systems. Like there's so much hanging and bracing everywhere that I think that there was an effort last edition cycles of everything to try to bring everything in compliance. And they're like, why is hanging and bracing vastly different for a sprinkler system than it would be for a standpipe XYZ? So they are putting together a committee and they're creating its own document, and then you'll see it come out of the other document.
It's gotta be titled like the standard of hanging and banging.
You can
Uh,
you can suggest that if you would like.
the standards of hanging and banging. That would be excellent. So you guys don't brace in California? Don't you like
I
you know,
would think they get earthquakes all the time.
more than we have here? Have we ever even had an earthquake in New England?
I don't know, but you hear about them in California.
We'd be putting a
They've had some
lot of
bad
bracing
ones.
on the pipe up here.
So it's going to be NFPA 200,
NFPA 200, the standard of hanging and banging.
hanging and bracing of fire protection, fire suppression systems.
If you prefer that, yeah.
Oh shit.
Let me see. So that being said, public input closed, but yeah, they're gonna have second draft meeting. I don't know, they haven't announced it yet, but public input has closed
Okay.
on June 1st.
We brace arm overs. I'd be bracing mains and everything. End of the lines, mains, corners, every 40 feet, you name it.
So so AFSA requested that NFPA explain more in depth about the in NFPA. They say for when you're joining threaded pipe, right? Use dope or use tape. So they wanted y'all to explain that a little bit more in depth. Just the AFSA guy came on the show and he put that in there. It was really cool.
Josh
What we
McDonald.
would like to see, and what we would think would be a great idea, is if you put in the annex somewhere that it is dope and then tape. That is the superior way.
That is the way, and that's the only way that's allowed by NFPA.
So if you can help us out, just squeeze it in there somewhere,
Aren't
even
they
in like a
doing away?
bottom
Aren't they
right
gonna do
corner.
away with the annex? Isn't that another rumor that a birdie told me?
No, not getting rid of the annex. So I guess this is a good segue for another thing I wanted to talk about. But I know that in 13, I was just working on some 13D stuff, and I know there was some annex material talking about dope and tape, and it was saying use one or the other because the pressure's too much. So I don't know. I can't speak exactly to all of those things in that in 13 about that. But I do want to note that NFPA standards, all of our documents are created by groups of volunteers on a technical committee, right? So like NFPA, I'm one person that I have zero say in what goes into codes and standards, right? We're an ANSI accredited standards development organization. We have to follow a whole bunch of rules on how our standards process is followed. And it's an open-ended consensus document process. So there's technical committees that work on putting the documents together, but it's all based on input from the public. So if there is a change that you wanted made in a document, you could go in when NFPA 13 starts its next cycle, which so the 2025 is going to be coming out next year. They're in their second draft meeting. I'm actually heading down there tomorrow. You can submit a public input and you can tell them that they need to make a specific change. And if you provide reasoning, they have to provide you with a response. And then You can submit again. It's a first draft and a second draft. You can submit comments on both of those, and you can follow that through. There's a whole process that you could suggest changes and make sure that you provide your input. So
Dope and
if you
tape.
did want something like that being put in the annex, I'm not saying they're going to accept it or not, but it's not NFPA that's doing it. It's a technical committee, and you can 100% submit that, and we do encourage the public to submit.
What if we get like 10,000 people from Instagram to also do it? And then there's 10,000 emails saying we want dope and tape on all NPT threads.
Sure.
Come on.
You can submit it. You have got to have justification.
Oh
That's
man,
typically what the
we got
technical
an
committee
army
requires.
behind us.
Yeah,
Let's
the
do it,
justification
boys.
is it doesn't leak,
Doesn't leak, kid.
and you're clean. You know.
I want to say the annex material that I was looking at was talking about
Oh,
like
shit.
overpressuring the joint if you put both on there. But
You can definitely crank it in way deep. When you have both, if you just don't know your strength, you can just. But even with just dope, you can crank it until there's no. You can bury it. I can bury it with just tape. You just gotta know when it's at making.
So
yeah,
you get it until it's
Let's
tight, and then you level it
go.
off. I mean, you don't have to bury it in the pipe.
Bracing's required on arm overs when getting two heads off of 1 inch outlet here in Cali. You guys got weird little weird rules out in Cali. Everything is weird in Cali. Dope and tape for
So,
life.
is there if you're able to talk about it, is there any new projects that
Tape in the code book.
NFPA
Let's
is working on
go.
that's like really interesting to you?
I mean, so I work in our technical services group. So I work as a resource to all technical things that happen throughout the association. I mean, one of the big things that we've been working on that's been out for the past few years is NFPA Link, which I think, Bobby, you might have brought up that you have access to NFPA Link through the union.
Yeah. So I have it on my phone. I have.
That's correct.
So
Yeah,
it's
he does.
all of our codes and standards are available digitally. You can access them all for free. That's another thing. You go nfpa.org/ the document number. You can get free access to all codes and standards. But NFPA Link provides you access to all of them in a much easier to look at format. You do a lot of searching. We add a bunch of enhanced content explaining a lot of the code requirements. And there's different search features that you have where you can search different situations to look at code requirements as well. And that's something that we've been working on a lot. So it's a really exciting project that I've
Oh, you
been
can
part of.
search situations. I usually
That's
just
cool.
search like a keyword of the code I'm trying to find.
So if you do NFPA Direct, you can go in there and say you can click on a picture of a fire pump and you can look at inspection, testing, and maintenance requirements of the fire pump. You can look at installation requirements for the fire pump. And it kind of drills you down into where those requirements are located in the different standards.
Oh, that's wicked
As
cool.
far as putting in situations, or have y'all looked at adding in AI to that search engine?
I mean, hasn't everybody looked at adding in AI into something?
Absolutely.
So yeah, we all talk about it. Yeah.
I got a what was it, like a spam call today, and it was a AI woman that sounded like, I mean, she was right there with the conversation with me. It was incredible. I kept going. I didn't hang up because I was like, how far can we go
Press a
with
couple
this? It was-
buttons and see what she says.
dude, it was so good.
Beep 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 beep. The spam calls
Yeah.
are crazy. They don't say anything to me anymore. You just answer the phone, it's just silent. You give them a couple hellos and they hang up. What's up with that?
Oh wow.
Those
No,
ones drive
that's
me
the
nuts.
government calling you,
I
buddy.
would
That's
I would love
China.
I would love to have it the AI at least say something.
That
I-
would be cool. The type in a situation, have AI just direct you right to it.
I mean, the
Your
search
tea is
feature
weird.
in Link is something that I love because I just did it, was like, I could search dope in literally every NFPA coder standard and see where it comes up,
Boom.
which is pretty cool. Or you can just
Wow.
narrow it down to a specific chapter or a specific section.
I get like a lot
That's
of code
good.
questions
So
in the DMs, and that's like I just go to that first thing and I type in a keyword, and bam, it just brings me right to where I want to be.
I
And
love
it's
that.
so
So,
much
and
easier to navigate.
I was testing for NFPA 25 level 3, and I have all kind of trouble with all these corrosion questions, because in 25 it doesn't go in depth of what the corrosion looks like or what it's like or all that, but on the test it'll ask you, it's like, which one is this one that has this characteristic and that characteristic? And I'm like, I have no idea.
Yeah.
So for me to go on there and be able to search that, and actually maybe see pictures and read about it some more, and then that way I can go in, more prepared. It's a great
Yeah, I mean
tool.
the enhanced content in there, it does do a lot of explaining on that, and we're constantly adding enhanced content in there with examples, pictures, things like that. So that's certainly things that you would see in there.
So I wanted you brought up mist systems. So there's mist system, and then we went to NFPA, and then we did an interview with Ultra Fog, which is a high speed water system. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? And why don't we see more of it?
So yeah, so water mist is broken down into low pressure, intermediate pressure, and high pressure. So ultra fog is high pressure. Um, I off the top of my head, I think it's anything over 10 bar is high pressure, which is like, what is that, 150 psi or something. Intermediate is like 100 to 150 psi, and then anything under that is low pressure water mist. You don't see it a lot in the US, but it is pretty significantly used outside the US. The thing is with water mist is you don't need as much volume, but you need a lot more pressure. And like in the US, we have pretty robust water supplies. So we don't worry as much about how much volume of water that we need. But outside the US, they don't have, in a lot of countries don't have as significant water supplies as we do. So a lot of their water has to get stored on site. So the advantage of water
Like
mist
New
is
Zealand.
with less water.
I like that explanation.
Okay.
I'm gonna remember that
Yeah,
now.
I didn't know that.
That was
But
great.
So
you
we
do
did an
this,
interview with a guy in New Zealand, and they added tanks and pumps to every system.
yeah.
Scotland.
Was it Scotland?
Scotland Jim, yeah. From Discovery
Man, it's been a
Fire.
while. We gotta get
So
him back on
I
here.
got you. Yeah, he had a great
See what's been
accent.
going
He was one of
on.
like our first episodes, I think. He was like
Yeah,
maybe in the single digits. But yeah, they have a like a standalone pump house at every facility,
Yeah.
with a big tank that'll run. He was throwing out the bar. He kept on saying 5 bar, and
Yeah,
we I
they
don't know
use
what that.
the metric.
I had Google. We had Google open. We were trying to see bar,
we
but
were all googling.
I think the woman's name that we talked to was Michaela or
Yeah, yeah,
she said it
yeah,
was
Michaela.
1500 psi coming out of her system.
15 to
Yeah,
17.
they get pretty high. And I might be off on the high pressure. It might be higher than that. It
That's like
might be.
a how do you that's crazy pressure.
Yeah, but
Um,
it's such low flow.
yeah,
That's
I
so you're
guess
talking like
It
sometimes
builds
less than a
pressure
gallon a
in the
minute.
head, right?
less than a gallon a minute.
They can be pretty low. I mean, don't
Yeah,
quote me on it,
no,
but
I know,
it's
but that just
not that
seems
much water
that
that
seems
you're
And
crazy.
then
talking.
That
that's
seems
why they're
crazy.
using them on boats.
Yeah, big in marine and big in special hazard. So they are used in the US. I was talking with someone who does water mist for Marioff, and like I didn't realize that they use it a lot for transformer protection here. Like I think like the seaport has a bunch of them protecting their transformers. Like in their enclosures, it's literally like a high pressure air cylinder, water, and then the nozzles in there doing the protection.
And she said, and as far as inspecting them, you have this tool and you can check and see if the nozzles, if those tiny holes are clear or not. Because I was really concerned about how you would test that. Because
Yeah,
I mean, those holes in the heads were
tiny,
tiny.
so
Yeah.
tiny. You would think on a boat though, like you have ample water. You just like
Well, seawater, you don't want to pump that through your pipes though. You don't want salt water in.
yeah, I guess.
So would you say on a boat they have it's kind of like a tanker truck, like they have onboard fire water?
Yeah.
Huh.
And the big thing too
Okay.
with water mist, like even if you look at NFPA 25, there's a chapter on water mist, and there's a lot in there about
Right.
water quality testing. Because that's pretty significant with water mist systems, is making sure that water quality is good and it's not going to clog up the nozzles. Because the nozzles are required to have strainers on them.
Oh wow.
What do you say it's okay? Yeah, that's correct. And then I remember reading about it. And you have to check the strainers ever so often and then
Yep.
or change them and then especially if they were outside.
Yeah.
Is there an
Because a
NFPA
lot of them
app?
will go ahead.
Is there an NFPA app?
Yeah,
There's an
I
app,
Yeah.
believe
right?
there is.
There's an app, Paul.
For what NFPA Link has an app. which will take you to NFPA link. It's basically we'll take you because NFPA link is web based, so it'll be a link
Oh,
that takes you to the web
oh,
based
I
app.
got you. Yeah, Paul says an
But you can
NFPA app
use
would
it
be cool.
offline. You can download standards and use them offline
Oh
with
yeah,
NFPA.
that's wicked cool. I try not to travel if there's no Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
I try to stay where
No.
the Wi-Fi's at, you know?
So will you be at AFSA? We're going.
I will not be. I was trying to think.
Oh
Bobby asked me
man.
before. There will be. We will be there. I'm pretty sure we'll have a booth. I
Yeah,
just
you
don't know
got
who's
that's what
going
I
to
was
be
thinking. You
there.
guys got to have a presence. We'd love to do a chat with, whomever's going down there.
Yeah, go by and if someone if go by the NFPA booth and tell them that I sent you. And
Or we're gonna do that now
Yeah.
for sure.
So how did you so I think I say that like every episode. I'm sure everybody watching is getting tired of it. But we started Dope and Tape to create a movement, to create a community for fire protection.
Tell them,
We
dog.
felt like it was non-existent, to be honest with you. So and then you just started your Instagram, right?
yeah,
And how did you when did you hear about us, or how did that kind of come up?
I heard
The Dope and
about.
Tape.
Well, so I heard about you when you were on the Fire Sprinkler podcast. So when Bobby
Okay.
was on there. And then I think I saw you guys at CNE, and then I looked it up, and that's where I found out about you.
Okay, cool.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I wish we seen you there. I wish we seen you. We definitely would have talked. There's a few
Yeah.
people that said they seen us and then they didn't. Come say hi. Like we're
I was,
we're walking around looking for someone to talk to us. When you see us just walking,
That's
like
all we want to
we're
do is just
looking for
talk to
someone to
people.
talk to us. Just talk
Just
to
want to
us.
make friends.
Oh, it's awesome. Yeah, Chris is a good friend of ours. He's been very supportive.
yeah,
Extremely
I did. We did a
supportive.
couple episodes at CNE. Brian O'Connor and I did a few episodes with Chris, which that
Oh,
was that's
okay. Yeah, we kept on bumping into Chris. We did an episode with Chris there. We did a little 5-10 minute thing with Chris with his tripod. He's got a
Yeah, it was super
way better
fast.
camera setup than my iPhone, but we're making it work, baby.
I
yeah.
mean, we're just trying to figure it as we go, and just do the best we can.
That's
I
it.
think this is awesome. I love your guys' format. Like it's very laid back, just like having a conversation. I
Appreciate
love
it.
it.
Yeah, and we have, I would say like high-end guests like you, and then we also have, we got my
Like our
father was on here.
we
We
got our
have
boy Nick Teague too.
apprentices. We got
You can never forget about Nick Teague.
Oh yeah, you gotta go back and watch the Teague
Go
episode.
back and watch the Teague episode.
Gosh,
I was like
I was
YouTubing that whole. I'm
I
like,
went back after we posted it. I went back and watched, and I was dying laughing
oh,
the
I
whole
know.
time.
I was like in a panic on
Gosh,
Google, like, can we drink beer on YouTube? And it's like, yeah. I'm like, all right, cool.
one of our first episodes.
Nick
He's
pulls out his
drunk and he's
vape.
just
He's
like,
like, I'm like, oh
it's
man,
awesome.
yeah, we were, there's not much of a vetting process.
No, is you want to come on? All right, come on. And then sometimes, they come on and it's like, oh, well, this is going to be a ride. It's like,
But yeah, we're here, like, we want to give the fitters, the people that are hanging the pipe and
Yeah.
making the codes and designing the systems and, even firemen. We're still really looking for we need like a fireman to be the face of Dope and Tape and get on here and get the conversation going.
this is a place where anybody can come and share their story.
We're talking about the enforcement of 241, and it starts at the firemen. I mean, that's really where it has to start, right?
Yeah, I mean it all depends on the jurisdiction, but yeah, a lot of it falls down onto the fire code, which is usually enforced by the fire department.
And the fire
A
prevention that
lot
they
of
have.
times, so I'm friends with a lot of fire marshals, not really fires here, but like they're scared to come on. Like I don't know, like they're like I don't want to say nothing that I shouldn't say and
Yeah.
this, and so they just
I don't blame
like
them.
the brass is like nope,
Nope.
nope.
We'll get one. Yeah, but it's really just a conversation. There's a big conversation about how to respond to a fire protection emergency too. Like I'd like to get it drilled into every fireman, firefighter, fire lady's brain. Like open the drain too. Just open the
Yeah,
drain too,
please.
please. Like, 'cause
Way less water.
shutting it off is great, but like just open there's a drain there, open the drain. Like nine out of 10 times they don't open the drain, so wherever the break is, the water just continually all
Mm.
drains into wherever the break was, which is usually like in the lowest apartment in the worst spot or whatever. But
So what you're saying when they respond to a non-fire
if they respond
situation?
to a broken pipe or
Yeah.
usually a freeze, like I've followed them around in the great freeze of that we just had,
Yeah.
and it looked like it was still on. I went and I seen that they shut it off, but it was a three-story and the break was on the first floor, and so it was one entire system that was just draining into this these ladies' kitchen at like 1 in the morning. Could have
Yeah.
prevented a lot of water, but in the heat of the moment when the whole city's frozen, I understand too. They just want to keep getting to the next one, to the next one, to the next one.
Right. It was
That's a
rough that night.
Yeah, that's a big thing we've been talking about how to include in C&E a bit too, and like more of our educational content for like fire departments on like what to do when responding to a fire in a building that has a sprinkler system. Like what how can you utilize that to help you in putting out the fire, and then like how to use the fire alarm control panel, and like how to use that to help identify where the fire is. So we've been talking about, I want to push to have a couple sessions like that at CNE next year, going over those types of
Oh,
things
I'd love
because
to sit through that. Yeah, I mean, because I
Yeah.
I know a lot of us know if you're reporting to something, like you got to go to the fire alarm panel. It's going to tell you what floor it's on or which stairwell it's flowing from or whatever. But a new fireman might not know that, you know.
yeah, and there's cases of fire departments showing up thinking the fire's out, turning the sprinkler system off, and then the fire rekindles, or them shutting off the fire pump and then not being able to get it back up if they need it. So just more education on it. There is a standard, or is it, I think it might be a recommended practice, NFPA 13E, which is responding to a fire in a building with a sprinkler system and like what you need to do to operate that system.
Grab a
So I think
hose
just
and head
getting,
up, boys. Grab a hose and head up. There's valves.
yeah,
The
just
fire
getting more education on
the
that.
fire
So
department breaks the front door, checks for fire, and shuts every valve they find. It's
All of them.
it's like that's it. That breaks it down pretty good. They just shut the. I can remember I'm like opening the domestic back up. I'm like, you guys want your plumbing back on, or you want to just leave that one off too? Looks like it's up to pressure. They'll just open that back up for you so you guys can flush the toilets.
yeah,
And it's on the flip side, it's a part of like when I sell contracts for inspections or to do service or anything like that, I offer like free class for the engineers. And a lot of them don't really know. Like they have an idea and they think they know, but they don't really know the proper procedure that they should follow with the annunciator, the fire alarm panel, the pump, the different valves. And then also on top of all that, liability on themselves of shutting something prematurely.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's a
So I go over all that.
We have a good amount of training out there and certifications for like facility managers on like how these systems work, what are some different things to look for, because some of these inspections, especially like if you have unsealed valves that need to be inspected weekly to make sure that they're in the right position, like sometimes the building engineers can be doing that. So we do have certifications and trainings on those types of systems and how to make sure everything's working properly, or how to identify a qualified person to come in and do the work. Like, how do you educate yourself enough to know that you're going to hire the right person to do the work?
That's true. Oof,
that's a good
man.
one. Yeah. NFPA 120 is my field of work. Any thoughts?
What is NFPA 120? Is that
I'd have
tunnel?
I'd have to. Oh,
Is that the mining?
yeah, it's
Is
got
that
to be because
mining?
it's Paul.
Mining is crazy. That's something that I want to know more of, but you cannot bring any cell phones down there or cameras or video cameras
Oh, but Daryl was
because I
saying you
guess because of static resist.
Daryl was saying you could bring like an old school wind up camera down there.
Oh, okay.
Um,
With the
th
button
what do you
flash.
think about that, Paul? You bring an old school wind up camera down there, take some selfies for us, and get them developed and shoot them my way, and I'll NFPA 120 standard for fire prevention and control in coal mines.
Yeah.
What is the size piping usually going down there? Like a 4-inch main?
Oh, it's got to be coming from the surface, so you got to be having like immense pressure if you're going way down.
I mean, it's going down there. Yeah.
Or you're
Well,
getting
you
the
also
water from down there.
they're talking about a pump.
We got to have you on, Paul. Didn't we schedule Paul? Oh yeah, we got Paul coming on the 17th. That's right. We're gonna
Yeah.
talk all
That'd be
about it with
interesting to
Paul.
hear.
Yeah, we're gonna have a good coal mine episode with Paul on August 17th.
All right, Paul. What's the best hard hat headlamp? Where are y'all using down there? Or is there lights down there all the way?
Yeah, well, who was telling us like the lights went out and you're just supposed to stay still? I was talking to somebody about
You
this.
stay still?
If the lights go out down there, you're not allowed to move. You have to just stay still. That's the rule.
I bet there's so
What?
much
Why?
stuff that
It's pitch black. You can't
yeah.
see your hand.
Whoa.
You're like 400 feet down or something like that.
Yeah, but oh, can you have a headlamp?
Yeah, you gotta have a
Can
special
you?
headlamp that's got like a metal box around it. Everything, nothing can make a spark. No batteries or
Right.
something like that. The battery has to have protection. I
Oh,
think Daryl was hitting me with all these facts.
that's why like all the pictures of the mining people, they had that giant metal like headlamp.
Yeah. It's gotta last all day, right? I mean, you gotta be able to. It's gotta be a lamp that can last all day. Gotta
Yeah,
get
I
eight
mean,
hours out of them. Gotta get 8 hours out of the boys. Yeah, so that's pretty cool that NFPA is located right in Quincy, like the main,
yep.
right in Quincy, Mass. Did you know that, Bry?
no, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
NFPA.
So do
NFPA
you?
has 4 office buildings in One Battery March Park in Quincy, like right on the Braintree line, right by the Braintree Mall. Is that
I'm gonna come visit.
sure? It's not like it's literally office buildings. So we
Oh,
do have like an old hand pumper in the
is there
atrium.
like a big sign on the front that says NFPA?
Yep.
Yeah, that's what I would come for. I want to take a selfie with that thing.
Yeah. Well, let me know when you're there. I can always meet you. I can give you a little tour, but it's not super exciting. It's mostly office space.
Okay, I might come by
Sounds
if the day
exciting to
calls
me.
for it. It does sound exciting still.
Yeah, y'all bring me up. We'll do a whole dope and tape video for the
Let's
office tour.
go.
This is the break room.
Well, whenever you go to New York and you're gonna come over to Massachusetts and we'll go out to Quincy.
Oh, that'll be something. Yeah, I can't wait to tell my wife. Hey, by the way,
By
we're
the
gonna
way,
cut our
we're gonna go
vacation short. We're gonna go tour some office space.
we're going
All
4 hours
right.
east. Get in, buckle up.
Well, there's you can go see Plymouth Rock. You could see the Mayflower. You can go on the Freedom
Yeah.
Trail. There's a whole bunch you could do.
Take the fast cat out to the islands. Whatever you want to do, dude. There's all kinds of stuff. This
If
was
you're ever
great.
in the area, let me know. I'll show you guys around.
That'll be awesome. We could do a video kind of like MTV style,
MTV Crib style.
Sean can open the doors like, oh, come on in. Come on in. Come check out
Show
my crib.
show us the fridge.
Yeah, show us the fridge. What you got in there?
We are consolidating because I was telling Bobby before, like since COVID, I mean, so I'm working in my basement right now. We're dispersed now. So we go into the office once a quarter or so.
Whoa.
Half of our team's not even located in New England. We've got 2 people in Michigan, someone in Tennessee, someone in Maryland. So we are fairly dispersed. So we used to only occupy 2 floors of one building, and now we're moving up to just 1 floor of one building.
Oh wow,
Okay.
Yeah.
that's pretty cool. So you guys are like you're remote.
Yeah.
For the most part. NFPA. Well,
Well, I
this
mean,
is
that's kind of like how the industry and like, well, not really the industry, but everywhere is kind of going remote. I'm fully remote.
and
You
still
know?
just as efficient.
Yeah.
I'd argue I'm more efficient at home than I would be in the office.
Oh,
More
every
efficient.
time I go to the office, I get nothing done.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody's asking me questions.
Shooting the
Look,
shit.
look. For the people who work with me, I love all the questions, and I'm always there to help. But people ask me questions, and what do you do here? What about this? What about this? And then there's people that want to talk, and it's just like I can't get anything done. But
Yeah.
here, when I'm at home, so I'll spend my like before 12 or 1 o'clock, I'm out doing my meetings and stuff like that. Then I'll go to a coffee shop, work till 3, 4 o'clock, and then I'll come home.
Yeah, you love them coffee shops.
I do. Yeah, because people are working around me and they're working. And I'm like, all right, I gotta work. If
Mm.
I'm home, I can be like, maybe I can make me another sandwich. And
So
it's
you aren't as efficient as you are at home, then, is what you're saying right now.
well, at
Remote
home,
at the coffee
there's
shop.
not a
He's efficient
nothing's
at the
going
coffee
on
shop.
around me.
Right.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I need some movement. I need some
Yeah.
energy. At a coffee shop, people are moving, people are
Little
working.
chaos. Little
Right? A
chaos.
little
Yeah.
chaos, and I'm
Yeah.
in. I got my Bose headphones. I'm zoned in. I get so much done.
Boom.
And I'm caffeinated, so that's good too.
All firefighters know how to do is wash the truck and prep for the calendar. No. No. Be nice to the
They also
firemen.
make
All
really
right.
awesome RC tracks inside the bay too.
They run into buildings that are on fire. All right. That's something stellar that a lot of us don't do. But they do clean the trucks as well. The trucks look. I always like to videotape the truck when they go by. No
And the
lights down
car
there,
itself.
Paul? I don't understand. No lights. Parrots and sprinklers don't mix. I can't wait for this Paul episode about the caves, the cold
Yeah,
caves.
say wow. That's something that we've never even experienced. I mean, they don't even have them.
This is so this
You
it's
is
been a
there
pretty
around?
surreal episode to where we started this little thing in December and now we got Shawn from NFPA on the show.
Yeah, that's wild.
We could appreciate it, man.
I still can't believe it.
Yeah.
I mean, what, 69 episodes ago, we were episode one. I was sitting on my couch, just like, "Are you live? I don't know if we're live, but
Are we
how do
live?
you want to do this
I think
thing?"
we're
You know?
live. I think it says we're
Yeah.
live. Hey guys, got like two people
Hey,
watching us.
if you're watching this,
Now here we are talking to you, and this is great. This is pretty cool.
and
No,
the
it's
episodes are getting better too. We're able, me and Bobby are working better together, and they're kind of flowing, a little better. We're getting the hang of it.
yeah,
So
it's awesome.
I think we just keep
Appreciate you
going.
coming
I
on.
do like the Zoom thing, though. I mean, it's really the best thing we can do. Just this kind of this format. It doesn't look as like super professional, but I mean, Bobby's in Boston and Atlanta, and then our guests are everywhere around the world. So
It's
Yeah.
there, man. We're having a chat, and everybody gets to see it.
yeah, I
Live
think we're
streaming
gonna
it to
ride
the
with this for a
world.
while.
Appreciate everyone that's always watching and commenting, and see how many likes you guys did. 6 likes. I see that there's like 20 of you in here, but there's only 6 likes. What's up with that? Let's hit the like
Yeah,
button a few times. If Brian can
I
point to
guess
the
they don't
top of the
like us, man.
screen, give us a little point to the top right there.
Right here, right here.
You get your merch right there if you wanted to get this hat or
Get
any
the
of our
dope and
shirts or
tape.
whatever. I seen someone had a sticker, a dope and tape sticker. The thing is like 8 inches wide. I didn't even realize we had one that was that big. I'm like,
Oh, that's
where did you
awesome.
get that? He's like, on your website, bro. I'm like, oh, cool.
This has been a really popular color. Like Chris from the Fire Sprinkler podcast, his wife got this color. Chad Tesser got it. I got me and
I
my
think
wife
that's
this
what
color. I
sold
mean,
it.
I kind of like it.
As Chris sent he got it and sent us the picture and we put it up on the Facebook and everyone wanted that one.
Yeah.
That worked out well. Shout out to Chris Logan at the Fire Sprinkler podcast. He just got a new setup. I can't wait to see some of his new videos.
Yeah, that looks official. He's
It,
got like a full mixing board
it
and
looks sick.
Yeah.
I commented on the mixing board too.
Bro, that looks complicated. We're doing it here with
Yeah, I can't wait to see
I
what
got
he
a mic I
does.
got off of Amazon for $30. It's like,
You're
but it's cool.
you're doing good over there, Bri. 2 screens, kid. Come on.
Hey, I've came a long way.
You
So
didn't do
dope and
much.
tape.
You didn't
I
do much
bought my
Googling today.
No, I didn't. I've actually bought my first laptop for dope and tape. Because before I was just
And he learned how to use it too. Trust me.
I had to learn how to use the thing.
Oh, all right. We can wrap this up. Hour and 10
Yeah.
minutes. It seems
Thank
like
you
that's like
so
the new
much for
norm.
coming
A
on,
little over an hour.
man.
Appreciate everybody. There's a couple likes. Thank you for hitting that like button. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for all your comments. Appreciate you
So who's
guys.
coming on Thursday?
Thursday, we got Thursday was supposed to be Kenko, but we moved him up because I forget who backed out. Thursday's open. Who wants to come on Thursday? Maybe we should move Paul up. Paul, you want to come on Thursday?
Paul, come on Thursday, man. Let's get this going.
We're moving you
The
up,
hype
Paul.
is up.
We're moving you up. You're getting the next available slot with your mind stories. Paul's gonna be
Better
there.
be ready.
Paul submitted our first shout out on YouTube. I didn't even know how to share the thing. Paul
Yeah,
goes
that's
on
awesome. No, I
YouTube.
shared it on. Hey,
Yeah, but
Paul, just so you know, I shared it on LinkedIn. Did I share it under mine or Dope and Tape?
I shared it. I screenshot it. The only way I could figure out how to share it was to screen record it, and I put it on
I shared the
TikTok.
link. So I did the link.
Oh, the link. All right. I
Yeah,
wanted to share that
and then it
video.
popped right up. Thank you. That was so cool.
That was cool.
I was on vacation
YouTube
and then I
short.
was around my family and we were just hanging out around the living room and I was like, "Look, everybody, look, check this out. Look at this. This is so cool."
We got a
Thanks,
YouTube
Paul,
shout
man.
out.
We really appreciate it. Wow.
Yeah, I appreciate all you guys repping the logo. Thank you so much. And yeah, thank you again, Shawn, for coming on.
Thank you so
thanks
much
for having me.
listening.
We're
Appreciate it.
we're gonna have you on again.
Yeah, for sure.
We're gonna stir up some more questions, and yeah, this is fun talking standards. I like talking the standards and getting the stuff out there, like especially the three that we talked about: 855, 420, and 241, which are new and not really being talked about much.
Yeah,
Maybe once
definitely.
420 drops or gets is official, we'll chat again. How far out is that?
Uh, if it hasn't even made the first draft yet, you're still looking at 3 years or
Oh
so.
damn! All right, well we're gonna have you on before that.
We could talk
Yeah,
about
for
anything
sure.
else. I can talk
Awesome.
about it.
All right, well we're
Talk about it
gonna
all day.
yeah all day fire protection all day. All right, thank you everybody. I think that's it. That was a good show. We'll be back Thursday with Paul. Paul hasn't confirmed, but we're gonna just confirm it.